All right, you ready? 1, 2, 3. Hey everybody, welcome back to Chalkboard History. Today we have with us the esteemed Tim Kearns, a longtime member of the former Carnton Association and then Battle of Franklin Trust. Tim's joining us though today because if I have my order correct, you're going to be the James Monroe of the Battle of Franklin Trust. So I was trying to do this calculation where I was like, okay, so Mary Ann Schroer was George Washington, and then Cullen Smith was John Adams, and Gary Rosenthal was Thomas Jefferson, and Jim Roberts, who's about to leave, is James Madison, so that makes you James Monroe. Tim, we're filming this, what is today? June 18th, is that right? Is that the 18th?
Yep.
So Tim is going to be board chair. He's board chair elect. He's going to be the board chair of the Battle of Franklin Trust in 12 days. So,
Yes.
Mr. Kearns,
Yeah, absolutely.
what do you think about all this history? What do you tell us about why you got involved with Carnton, and then we're going to kind of flow into a little bit about Carter House and Ripilla, where we're at. But what got you into this?
Well, actually, as probably many people coming in, Robert Hicks came to my office when we owned a nursery downtown called Flower Power. Mm-hmm. And
That sounds like such a hippie outfit.
Yeah. And that was in the 96, 97 era.
Did he drag you in? Like, did he corner you and make you do it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He does that with everybody.
Yeah, he was good at that. Yeah.
So he said, we have a garden that we want to convert to something that was historically accurate, mid-19th century, and we need help. And we need irrigation, some of the current modern conveniences. And we want, we're trying to put together a layout. We need plant material and things like that. So I was able to procure all the irrigation components and someone to install it. And that was kind of the beginnings of we're ready to have plants now and a design and everything else. So
you were on the board. I'm pretty sure you were on the board. I know you were connected when I started working at Carnton or hanging around it in 05, and then Angela hired me in 06. So tell everybody the difference between, I mean, you just showed me something from the board. First of all, you showed me a board list, and like half the people on the board are no longer with us. But,
2000, year 2000.
Right. So also attendance was much different. So, describe for everyone what it was. What's the difference between then and now? The biggest difference?
The biggest difference is cash flow, for sure. And so now, during board meetings at that point in time, we were talking about survival. We were talking about employee payroll, the maintenance of the historic structure, Carnton specifically, was done by the board members. I mean, we had a lot of board member work days where we would pressure wash, we would paint, and do things that today we hire people to do. We had a single wide trailer as a visitor center.
Oh, those were good days, weren't they?
We had
the old trailer.
Well, we also, in order to attract people, we had the concert series, which on the weekends, the bathrooms at the visitor center was way over capacity. Yeah. And it was 90 degrees. And so you can imagine.
Yeah, it was terrible.
It was terrible.
Yeah, it was like the Peace Corps in the middle of Africa. It was really awful.
It was when you were a board member then, you weren't talking about the CDs and the investments and how to transfer money and where all this one's coming to up to date and we need to move the money from here to there. We were talking about getting money. What will it take to raise more money? And I'm not going to say desperation, but they were hard times.
When did you know it was changing? When did you see Carnton start to go whoosh?
I would say the Widow of the South made a difference, and almost simultaneously, we raised the money to build the visitor center, which is a great segue because the difference between pre-visitor center at Carnton to now is totally night and day. And here we are developing and under construction at the Carter House for a visitor center and having conversations about Ripilla, the visitor center. I say once those two things have happened, and it may be as few as 10 years from now, the difference is going to be tremendous.
Well, I can tell you, having worked in the old trailer, yeah, that was quite an experience between the bathrooms and the black mold and just the limited capacity. But I am sure you will remember this. And by the way, Tim was instrumental in not just being on the board at the time the Fleming Center was built at Carnton. He was really the main board rep dealing
I was the board liaison with the contractor.
With the contractor and all that. But I'm sure if you've ever visited Carnton since 2009, you know about the visitor center. But what you probably don't know, unless you visited in the span of about 4 or 5 days between its opening and the flood, you remember the morning that I called you to tell you what had happened. So let everybody know about, this was the flood before the big flood.
Yeah, we had just finished, and we really designed the building and the floors specifically to have planks, wood planks.
Right.
Poplar, I think.
Yeah.
And we stored them in the building during construction so they can get acclimated. And then they were installed. And about 2 days later, a storm came, and all of the runoff from the field came right through the door. And the janitors who came to clean up found it first, called Eric. Eric called me. Because I also happen to be the insurance agent. And
I can still hear Keith on the phone. He said, Eric, there's a problem. And of course, I'm thinking somebody broke in and stole everything out of the gift shop. And then he told me, and he said there was water standing on the floor. And I was like, what are you talking about? Yeah, and it was destroyed.
Yeah. So we had to, actually, it's one of the first times that we had a do-over.
Yeah.
And the do-over was the replacing the wood planks, which would obviously wear over time, especially with the type of attendance we have now. We were able to go with a tile that represented a floor, a wood, with a whole lot better longevity to it, and insurance paid for it.
So at the same time, so as if this wasn't crazy enough, so that was August of 2009. At the same time, you have to dial back about 13 months before that, we had started conversations to create the Battle of Franklin Trust. So like everything is coming together all at one time. So we're working on the Fleming Center, that part of it. We had the gift shop open, but the whole back area, I mean, it was shut down for something like 2 months. But at the same time, we were finalizing the arrangements that created the trust. In fact, that same month, the trust was created, and then we, meaning we, the trust, which all of us then became part of, took over active operations at the Carter House on November 1st, 2009. Now, I have a lot of memories from that day, but like, what do you remember of, being on the one board and hearing what was going on? What are your memories?
There was, it was a little contentious, not from the Carnton board. I think the Carnton board had almost unanimously agreed that the direction that we needed to go as a community was to merge.
Right.
And I know that the Carter House board seemed very passionate about their independence.
Yeah.
And so it took a minute for them to be comfortable with what they saw as an intrusion in their board.
Yeah.
But fortunately, Ed Underwood at the time was president of the Carter House board.
Yeah.
I was president of Carnton, and Mary Ann Schroer came in as the merged entity board president. And so it was a few meetings that finally brought everybody together, and the rest is history. I mean, it made a big difference.
I was thinking, as I often do, as I drive in, and I'm going to work, and I have 20 or 30 minutes to just think about what I'm going to do for the day, and I was thinking about that time, and because I was operating kind of in both areas. And yeah, the Carter House board, it was passionate. Yeah, there was, some of those meetings were almost ugly. But Ed was great in trying to, rally the troops. I'll never forget a meeting over there, and one of the board members of Carter House, who's also no longer living, actually said at the meeting, I was sitting at the table, and he said, are we going to let these Yankees tell us what to do? And I remember thinking, I'm sitting right here. Like, you don't have to talk in the third party, but there was that going on. But I was thinking, too, in hindsight, the merger wasn't necessary from just a practical standpoint, because I think Margie Thesson, during this, because she was at Carnton in that time, and Margie made the point that had this been made into a national park like 100 years ago, would we ever be talking about pulling it apart? Of course not. So we should come together. Mm-hmm. And in hindsight, I remember, I can see the good and the bad that existed really at both places. And maybe good and bad isn't, each was different. Carter House had this sort of like purity about the battle. Okay, that was their thing. Carnton wasn't really about that. It was more about the McGavics and the cemetery and the hospital. And, I think the merger allowed both places to actually really, for old places, it sounds strange to say this, but to mature into what they were at the time. Mm-hmm. Because Carnton was much more than just the house and John and Carrie McGavick. And the Carter House was always much more than the Confederate Army and Todd Carter. And I look back on all those years and I'm like, it really was worth it. It really was worth all that hassle. Yeah. Because look at us today. The visitation is probably 3 times what it was. I mean, at Carter House, we've actually almost tripled attendance, and Carnton is probably twice what it was. So we're crazy with visitor centers. I mean, we've built one, which has now been there for 15 years, and then we've worked on trying to get the other one started for about 15 years. But the Carter House Visitor Center is underway. We've talked a little bit about that in other videos. That's supposed to open up next spring. But since we're at Ripilla, and just, today's Wednesday, right? So Monday night, 2 days ago, the city of Spring Hill Board of Mayor and Alderman voted 9-0 to extend our contract to 2037, and we've started talking about building a visitor center here, which Ripilla has never had. We can knock on the trailer or the existing visitor center at Carter House, but Ripilla has never really had a visitor center. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, too, about all the angst and hand-wringing and name-calling that went on here just as recently as 4 years ago when we took over. And those votes were close. Sure. I mean, it was not a foregone conclusion. And I went in there Monday night, and I'm not sure. I didn't want to be like Hillary Clinton in 2016 going, I'm going to win. And then all of a sudden you're like, uh-oh, I lost. They voted 9-0, and there wasn't even any discussion. Mm-hmm. And it was so clear that what we have done was worth it. And so what do you think, as someone who's been involved at Carnton and Carter House for all these years, what are your takes on Ripilla, and what do you think a visitor center will do here?
I really think,
Mr. Board Chair, because you're going to get to deal with it now.
Yeah. So there's one thing where you're talking about a visitor center. It's another thing to me when the mayor of Spring Hill is talking about a visitor center being built. That means there is some continuity here, and everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, I have to say, this is how crazy we are. Like, we work all the time. Tim works in his real job all the time, and then my real job is it's all the time. He texted me last night and said the Channel 2 News in Nashville was running a story about it, and that's where Mayor Fitterer was talking about this project.
Yeah. So he's saying that, and so he acknowledged we need a visitor center here. I think the one thing that is really going to create traction is the growth in this area. And I think a lot of people are looking for history. They're looking for what's the background, what happened here. Mm-hmm. We even talked about in a board meeting about some of the artifacts that were found during construction of the Saturn Parkway.
Yep.
And it may be a visitor center creates the opportunity to reintroduce those artifacts, to talk about even a further history than just the mid-19th century.
Well, that's exactly right, because you can't put them in the house, you can't put them in the place we have today, which is really a place where we just sell tickets. You need to have storage, and then you need to have a secure facility where you can actually display them appropriately. And
I think it just opens a whole opportunity for a much greater background to Murray County and this whole area and where it came from, and not only the home and the families that lived in the homes, and the servants and the farm and agricultural aspect, but you go back to the Indians that originally settled this area with the artifacts, and you can have all of that. You can tell a huge story of hundreds of years.
So since you opened that door, my pitch, and as I told you and other members of the board, I'd been politicking for months. I'd been meeting.
Oh yeah, doing a great job too.
Yeah, I didn't think I was going to be half a politician, but I was meeting with existing board members. I was meeting with people who were running to become board members of BOMA, that is. And I've known Mayor Fitterer since, 2016 or 2017, and I didn't. Matt knows this. I was not a supporter of his when he first ran, but I was wrong, and he won that seat, and he has he's already shown some real leadership, but he's always supported us. And so when I was meeting with people, and I met with Alderman Linville, and I'm sure you've heard this because I'm sure I've talked about this in the board meeting. So for the listeners, you're going to get the sneak peek into what we're going to really kind of build the framework over the next few years, so that we know what we want, and then we have to figure out how to fund it. And then we have to build it, which won't be a private endeavor, but it won't be the state bureaucracy of the Carter House. It'll be somewhere, in between. My pitch for a visitor center at Ripilla, and this will give some of you a heart attack, is not just about the Chairs family and Ripilla and the Battle of Spring Hill or the Civil War. That is a piece of it. But just like the first exhibit at Carter House is going to be based on the Declaration of Independence and all men are created equal, because we talk about the Battle of Franklin on every tour.
Sure.
I want the visitor center here to not even be near where we are sitting, because this is the second phase of the Chairs story. I want it a half mile east of here where the Chairs family settled in 1811, because this is our opportunity to do something in Middle Tennessee that no one else is doing, which is to tell the history of the United States, westward expansion, Tennessee being created in 1796, Murray County being created in 1807, white settlers like the Chairs who also are expanding slavery, Indian removal, antebellum politics, Andrew Jackson, James K. Polk, right up to the Civil War, and thread that needle all the way through Reconstruction and into the 20th century, and ultimately the arrival of General Motors, which is the thing that really saves Ripavilla. And I want to tell a story about this country, in this little piece of this country, so that people can look back and see where we came from. Because we can't do this in Franklin. We're pretty locked into the battle and what we do there. It's not going to be told in Nashville outside of the State Museum, and they do a great job, but they do their own thing. This is an open-air museum, and they're not going to do it in Columbia. And, if you go east, they're not going to do it in Murfreesboro. They're not going to do it in Jackson. So unless you want to go, I think, outside the boundaries of this state, I don't know that you can get this story about the American South and how important it is in the history of this country. And I know when I this is like mad scientist sort of stuff, and I'm laying this out, and I think I know a number of the board members, including now the mayor, are like, yeah. Alderman Linville said to me, he loved the idea because he always thought that the battle story here was kind of ancillary, and that there was more to it. And I was like, yeah, man, because the Chairs family and the enslaved, so black and white, rich and poor, everybody around here knew the world they lived in. So why not tell that? Because that world was redefined and thus the country was, and we are the beneficiaries of everything that happened here. And I think it's time to proudly tell that story, but also recognize some of the really awful things that we did and understand why they happened. And that, I think, that's the long-term vision, and that's why we got the contract extension till 2037, because we're going to need that time.
Yeah.
We need that time to do it. So Tim will be board chair for 4 years, or I'm sorry, 1 year, but I think you have how many years left on the term? Is it you have 3 more or 4 more?
I have 3 more left on current term.
Right. So Tim our officers get elected every year. So Tim may be, I suspect he'll maybe board chair beyond a year. But Tim keeps coming back too. You were off the board for a while, and now you came back, and now he got to be board chair. So you're the James Monroe of the Battle of Franklin Trust. Any last thoughts for everyone about what we do and who we are? What do you tell people about us when you're spreading the gospel?
I really think we do a great job of educating residents, and obviously there are a whole lot of new residents in this area that have come from other places in the United States.
California.
Yes, and a lot of them in California, and they've never been exposed to anything like the Civil War. And obviously Carnton and Carter House are both specific to the Civil War, and you've just explained why this is a little different in the story that it would tell. But you start with the education of the children that come to this area. So we have school children on tours. They go home excited, they tell their parents, then their parents come. And then they have visitors. We have people who visit from Atlanta and all over the Southeast, friends of ours that come stay with us. Well, let's go to Carnton on tour. They love that. Mm-hmm. And they get blown away by the story and the fact that we have these types of venues right here in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
Ripilla is no different, and Murray County should embrace exactly what exists here now and look forward to what will exist here once the visitor center is completed.
Right, because think about 20 years down the road, which is what I'm often doing, and you think about the sort of, even if the growth stopped, this area is still going to be pretty hot. And you go from Nashville to Franklin to Spring Hill to Columbia, and it's already going south of Columbia. You can almost go straight to the Alabama line. This whole corridor and this nexus between Saturn Parkway and 65 and Highway 31, which is right out here, it is a place that a lot of people are moving to and will move to. And I think it's just, there's a lot of opportunities, and I don't think there's any better place to do it than actually at Ripilla.
I agree.
Which is its own unique place. It was then. It was a unique place in the landscape, and it is today. So it ought to be an exciting short-term new visitor center next year, new visitor here at some point, hopefully in years to come, but a lot of work and a lot of visitors. We've already almost tripled attendance here.
Yeah.
And we are driving people south from Franklin, and once they experience any site, I think that's managed well and interpreted well, they're like, yeah, man, I got to tell people about this. I got to tell my family when they're in town. So,
well, one of the things that you mentioned earlier is about the consolidation and what it took to get Carter House and Carnton together, and now Ripilla. I think one thing that it creates is continuity and consistency. The message is the same. It's no different than businesses that are merging and the acquisitions, and I mean, all of it creates efficiency, and the message is all the same, and so you can create that story from north to south.
You know what's really cool? Sometimes last thought is not only the continuity, so you don't get these divergent ideas like causes of the war or opinions about commanders. I mean, there's maybe subtle differences, but it's a pretty straightforward, consistent message. Is the people who will buy the 3-house ticket, and they maybe will do 2 of them, and they'll start in Franklin, and then they'll show up here, and one of the guides that they had in Franklin is working here the next day. So they actually get the consistency sometimes between the guides. So
perfect.
It's all great. If you haven't been out to see Ripilla, come see it. Tim Kearns, new board chair in a matter of days. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Thank you.